Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to your Easter Sunday, April 24th, 2011 edition of Wrestle Talk Show. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here to bring you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news, bits, rumors, anything and everything wrestling. We cover it for you. We got a great show for you tonight, featuring on tonight's show, need votes, hand out WrestleMania tickets. News comes out now that the exchange of wrestling tickets may have gotten Linda McMahon some of her votes and accounted for over $1 million. We'll give you the exact details in the story. And a related matter, Blumenthal, who beat Linda McMahon last year, says that he's currently working on wrestler/worker misclassification that WWE is responsible for, and became the focus point of all debates towards the middle and end of that election that Linda McMahon did essentially lose. But we broke news a couple weeks ago that she does plan on running again next year. We kind of joked about why that is. Those of you who know behind the scenes what Linda's endured don't really see this as a surprise. How many of you, question of the night is, how many of you think she'll actually win? I personally think that no matter how much of it you're writing off through WWE, didn't you learn anything last year? Why waste the money? That's like a mechanic telling you your engine shot and you still paying the money to fix it, just to have it break again next week when you're better off saving the money and buying a new car. Maybe a bad analogy, but main point is she's seen the outcome that she's not going to be able to escape pro wrestling, so why try it again? Stepping down from WWE didn't do her any favors. It just raised questions, and WWE will always be on her resume. So her involvement with the company, either literally or by relation, will always come into question. But we'll discuss that a little bit more as the show progresses. Like we always do, we want to thank our audience. Without you, this would not be possible. Without you guys, this would not be fun. So we want to thank you very much for that. And let's go right into your wrestling ratings. Those of you who thought SmackDown wouldn't do any good, it's now averaging a 3.0, and not much of a difference from the flagship Monday Night Raw that's on the USA Network. As just mentioned, wrestling tickets and other benefits in exchange for votes. The Associated Press filed a report on lobbying efforts in the U.S. Congress this year, including the exchange of WrestleMania 27 tickets in Atlanta being linked to a bill being squashed in Georgia. The AP reported the more than $3,000 worth of wrestling tickets that changed hands were just a fraction of the nearly $1 million that lobbyists shelled out for meals, drinks, tickets, and gifts for legislators and bureaucrats since January 1st. Quote, financing the WrestleMania tickets were lobbyists for the Georgia World Congress Center and Comcast Cable. The cable provider was deeply interested in a tax overhaul that would have slapped the tax on cable TV bills. The bill died. So, raises another question there. Here's some free tickets. We don't want this bill to pass. It happens every day and we don't hear about it. It's just funny when it relates to professional wrestling. But it's not uncommon. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm politically savvy, but I followed the McMahon campaign for the news for my responsibility on reporting it for this show and whatnot. But I don't even know whether to call this news because it's not uncommon. She needed votes. She has an into wrestling. Comcast Cable wanted a tax break and wanted a bill that would put a tax on cable bills to die. Together, through the partnership of WWE and Comcast Cable and the Linda McMahon campaign and the more than $1 million in wrestling tickets and other benefits, that was squashed. It's not uncommon. This is your political world day in, day out. So I don't know what to make of that outside of what I've just said. Moving on. Senator Blumenthal, who defeated, as we reported, Linda McMahon last year in her Senate campaign, is working on changing wrestler misclassification. Newstime.com reports that Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal is supporting legislation in Washington that cracks down on, quote, worker misclassification, the practice of classifying employees as contractors or part-time in order to prevent paying wages, benefits, and taxes. The subject was a continuous point during the campaign between Blumenthal and former WWE CEO Linda McMahon when it was revealed that WWE was under investigation by the state of Connecticut for possible violations because of this misclassification. And that'll be the segment for the show. We've been hinting at it the last couple of shows, but I'll give you my in-depth on it at the end of the show. Changes at the USA Network. Recent reports mention WWE. The Wall Street Journal published a detailed article looking at changes to the USA Network following the Comcast NBC Universal merger. The story focuses on USA's specific programming model, bright, sunny, character-driven dramas, and new TV shows that will be introduced this fall. WWE programming is briefly mentioned as one of those properties that doesn't really fit the USA Network mold, but delivers viewers to warrant its place. So, when I read that, does anybody else see that as a backhanded compliment? It's like saying, you don't fit in, but don't go anywhere. We like the fact that you bring 30 million, as we reported last week, whatever the number was, 30 million unique viewers to USA Network. So we really don't have a place for you, but we're not going to get rid of you. You're the red herring, but that's okay. R-Truth character turn and cigarette smoking gets mainstream media attention. Greg Gutfield, the host of Fox News Channel's Red Eye, did a Gregalogue, that's his tagline for a monologue, but with Greg, about Patrick Reynolds' demand that R-Truth apologize for smoking on Raw this week. Gutfield pointed out that to be offended by a cigarette in the midst of glorified violence is a little bizarre. Can't say that he's entirely wrong there. You'd think that the other two stories I gave you would have gotten more attention. Ride the misclassification thing out. Hell, like I was saying last show, I joked about it because I said the media must not have anything where it can directly go after wrestling, but maybe they published this before the other stuff came out. I would have wrote out the misclassification debate the whole year. Why look for trivial bullshit that's on your average PG shows? I mentioned this in the show before last, so I won't, echo it too much, but Patrick Reynolds, quit splitting hairs. It was a character turn for R-Truth. Vince McMahon obviously sees something in him. The man's been there 3 times. He's 39 years old. If he's going to get a push, it's going to be now. Those who don't want to watch it won't watch it. Those parents who don't want their kids influenced won't let their kids watch it, we can hope. And if not, what's with everyone trying to be Johnny on the spot with protecting our children? If you're a good parent, you're not going to let your kid watch it. If you let your kid, and that's debatable, if you let your kid make his own decisions, he or she will decide whether or not this is the kind of entertainment they want to watch. Especially with reports that wrestling fans are liking how WWE is breaking away somewhat from the brand split and the PG rating oftentimes, and it's getting good signs. So it's entertainment, people. To quote Eminem, this is music. It's for your kids' amusement. Not everything is literal. Not everything leads to another. Our truth could light up a joint next week, figuratively. It doesn't mean that 500,000 Americans, or whatever your number is, are going to jump out and want to go smoke weed. It's maybe another bad analogy, but come on. Moving on. Stacy Keibler makes her tough enough appearance last week. Makes a statement about that and returning to wrestling and the era of divas she helped create. In regards to last week's tough enough appearance and return to wrestling, Stacy had this to say, quote, "For right now, this is something I did with them, but I don't have any plans for wrestling officially and coming back and being on the road every week. It was so great to be back in the family and seeing everybody and to watch these kids. It's really fun to see them so eager to become part of the business," end quote. Ex-wife of Scott Hall comments on Hall and his relationship with his children. 48-year-old Dana Hall, former wife of Scott Hall, told Mike Mooneyham that her ex-husband no longer has contact with their children Cody, who is 19, or Cassidy, who is 16. Quote, "He hasn't seen Cassidy since August 2010, Dana told the Charleston Post and Courier. Quote, "I don't think he has seen Cody in almost 2 years. They may have had 1 or 2 brief phone calls since then, but nothing that I know of." Dana Hall comments that the last time she seen Hall face-to-face was last August when she brought Cassidy to say goodbye. Hall had just got done a crack binge where he'd spent all the money in his account and bounced the most recent child support check. She went on, this full article is available at prowrestling.net for those of you that want to read it. She more or less went on to say that he's inconsistent with his phone calls. The kids accept that they don't have a father or a normal life. He calls when he's drunk, basically belittles her when he's drunk. None of his calls are really uplifting and pro-father like it sounds like. And it just sounds like to save herself and her children heartache, she wrote Scott Hall off. This just piqued my curiosity. I'm just throwing this in there, but I'd love to know if the child support stopped. But that's neither here nor there. But I think that's the best thing, Scott. Regardless of what you know or don't know about Scott Hall, he's had his problems. He's had his demons. Hell, he was in an Insane Clown Posse movie where he was drinking what was insinuated to be moonshine. And at the end of the movie, he falls over. So when you can make those kind of jokes on yourself, where is your life gone? So I think it's the safest bet for the kids and her. You more or less just, he pays, and if you're going to be inconsistent, like she states, there's no point in being involved. If you're not always going to be there, your kids have no safety net, no support system. So if you're not going to be part of the support system, you're better off not being part of your kids' lives at all. This coming from the man who doesn't have any kids, but I can't say that I don't understand the method, that I don't understand the methods, you know. Ted DiBiase to undergo multiple surgeries. WWE Hall of Famer Ted DiBiase told 8countnews.com that he needs multiple surgeries. Quote, "They call me the $1 Million Man, but once I get 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement, they will be calling me the $6 Million Man," DiBiase stated before an appearance at a minor league baseball game in Mississippi on Saturday. Moving on to your retro review, Sting, A Moment of Truth, now streaming on Netflix.com. Great package, nice spot to put a plug here. Netflix.com/trial. You'll get a 1-month free trial. After that, rates start at $7.99 a month for unlimited streaming. You can watch damn near anything you want. $2 more a month, you get unlimited DVD rentals for anything that's not streaming. So it's a great program. So tonight, I started my free trial, and after filling out the questionnaires that get you your related videos, the one thing that caught my eye, I was actually looking up a Chris Benoit video, and go figure, you can't get them yet, but I found Sting, A Moment of Truth, which was a documentary/movie about Sting's rise to the top and the sacrifices that he made. There was some criticism about it, that it was more a movie and not so much a documentary, but it's neither here nor there. It explains the story from the Sting, the blonde-haired Sting, to the face paint, to the NWO days, to a brief comment on the rise and fall of WCW, not the show, the literal, not the DVD, the literal rise and fall of WCW. And I don't know, for an hour, and it was an hour and 29 minutes, and I don't know, I found it very informative. I posted a comment immediately after viewing it that, and I think it's a message that could be broadcasted on this show, that we all see it as entertainment. We come in here week in, week out, and criticize it, whether through an official show or just throwing something up on the internet or our Facebook or whatever. We see them as entertainers, but I don't think we always look at the sacrifices that those characters make behind the scenes. I could get into many different rants on different wrestlers where this relates, but it's easier to say that it just relates to them all. We only see the entertainment aspect. What they're sacrificing, we don't see. So it was kind of refreshing to get a perspective of, okay, it wasn't all glory for you. In Sting's case, it wasn't all glory for you. And he almost, you know, he suffered from admitted addiction, alcoholism, partying, almost lost his family, and found the Lord. And pick on that however you will, but a guy that can change his ways, and what they quoted at the end of the movie as miraculous recovery of his marriage, where you can go from where your wife thinks you're on the road cheating on her to coming back home, still wrestling, but being home enough now and saving the marriage from the brink of disaster. I don't care who you are. That's an inspiring story, at least from my perspective. And it just, to reiterate, it brings up that we as fans don't see the sacrifices that our favorite wrestlers make. We just want to see our favorite wrestlers week in and week out. So there'll be more on that, but I definitely recommend it. The movie, again, available on Netflix.com. Netflix.com/trial. The movie's called Sting, A Moment of Truth. It's an hour and 29 minutes. Not a waste of time, but if you're not a big Sting fan, maybe you won't like it. But I definitely recommend it. Right up there with Bret Hart Wrestling with Shadows. Moving on to your show segment, folks. Or actually, before we do that, let's get the plugs out of the way. We'd like to thank our friends at the PW Torch, Wade Keller and James Codwell, pwtorch.com. They have a live cast Monday through Friday. Mondays, 7 p.m., the hour before Tough Enough, 7 to 8 p.m. on Mondays. And then Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 Eastern, Tuesday through Friday. Every day of the week. Our friend Jason Powell at ProWrestling.net. He has a free audio show available on iTunes. Definitely suggest checking out all of them. our friends at smartwrestlingfan.com every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Their 3-hour coverage, weekly coverage of the week in professional wrestling. It includes pay-per-view coverage. Anything that goes down in that week, they cover it. So check them out. Again, their name is their address, smartwrestlingfan.com. And that's Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. And the live show is, in my opinion, much better. It's better if you catch it live because you get about an hour of material that eventually gets edited from the finished podcast. But when you watch it live, you catch it all. So as a fan of many different shows and having my own, I definitely recommend these guys. But our show segment for the night is wrestler classification, as we mentioned in one of the two stories at the top of the wrestling news. I feel, but do you feel, that wrestlers should get benefits too? I put here in my notes, especially when you're WWE, and without said wrestlers, you wouldn't have the empire the company does and brags about. And here's where I'll rant a little bit. I've said 2 episodes ago, I've been saying since the launch of the show, that actually there's a part 1 and part 2 when we were still doing 15-minute segments via YouTube on this classification and the treatment of wrestlers and all that stuff, where when you're WWE, when you're like the standard of wrestling, and I've always argued that when you can go quarter to quarter, cover your expenses, and brag about a balance of over $200 million, why isn't there something established for these wrestlers that without these wrestlers, WWE wouldn't be looking at any of this money? Without your John Cena's, without your Rocks, without your Bret Hart, Stone Cold, you name it. Without these people, they have no business. So I've always argued the point, why not take care of the people that take care of you? It's a great business practice that, I don't know, I guess greedy companies only use when it benefits them. But it's the argument of these people, whatever business you're in, your employees run your ship, so to speak. So the first people you, in theory, want to take care of are the people that make your business whatever your business is. And it's something that WWE, without even trying to keep it out of the press, adamantly denies, doesn't want any part of, doesn't want it brought up, wants to pretend like it's not even on the chopping block when it gets brought up every couple weeks. But I think it's just to give a flat statement and kind of an umbrella statement, it's kind of selfish, because it more or less says that these guys, whoever you are, John Cena, your next rising star, or whatever, it more or less says, we're going to pay you an insane amount of money, but when and if you get hurt, there's drug treatment available and rehab and all that happy stuff, because we had to put that in play because you guys are being injured so much that we got publicity for the painkillers and whatnot. But we're going to pay you, but should you get hurt or not be relevant anymore, we're just going to buy your contract out and send you on your way. We wish you luck in all your future endeavors, and I don't think it's fair. I think it could be a system that I've outlined vaguely, well, in parts completely, but have it to where WWE puts a certain amount out, and then the wrestlers out of their salary put a certain amount out. And what is so wrong with these wrestlers paying taxes, with these wrestlers getting benefits? That way they have something. When the millions mean nothing if you're Draws and you're in a wheelchair. Just an analogy. But the millions are great when you can spend it, or when you're an Edge and you know when to say when, or when you're a Rock and you wrestle and then it kind of stems off to something else. But what about those people that wrestle, have had great careers, like your Scott Halls and your Lex Lugers, that, I'll throw Sean Waltman in there, even though I think he gets a lot of heat that isn't necessarily merited. Some of it is, some of it isn't. But it's not a way to say thank you, more or less, to the people that make your business what it is. In theory, if all the wrestlers turned around and said, hey, the millions is fun, the millions are great, but we want to worry about our future, and it could be something as simple as you refuse to work without a benefits package. Maybe somewhere down the road, it'll become more relevant when we start to see, you hear stories all the time about how they're on top for a while, and then when the career's over, the money gets spent and they end up pulling the Scott Hall where you're working independence, where it could be argued that not necessarily Scott Hall, but these guys, no one could really, well, no one does, and maybe I'm not going to word this right, and you guys will call me out on it, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, here's for your X amount of years and your contributions to this company, whatever promotion you are. Now, I'm not saying for your independence and your low levels, because the budget of putting on a wrestling show just keeps going up, and the production value of WWE is high quality to begin with, and it just rings to the money they have left. Why? And it just boggles my mind why they adamantly say no to this. Like, if anything, keep it hush-hush, give a roundabout answer, but they'll report their earnings and then adamantly be against taking care of the wrestlers and the people that work for them. So, I don't know. The argument could be made, you're making millions of dollars, do the smart thing like Edge and all them did and save your money. I'm sure some of you will come back with that. But I also, again, don't think it hurts for a company to show that it cares, rather than just throwing money at you until you're not relevant or until you're injured and they buy your contract out and say, good luck. But that'll be all for tonight. You can view this show and our over 100 archive videos at YouTube, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/CWE Company. Visit the official WrestleTalk Show website at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. There you can interact with our online forum, send show-related emails, comments, columnist requests, logo contest entries. By the way, again, contest ends May 14th at midnight. Must include the letters WTS or the full name of the show, WrestleTalk Show. The winner will be advertised on the May 15th show that will be recorded and posted no later than 9 p.m. Eastern on May 15th, along with the winner and prize announcement. I've received several columnist requests. Thank you guys. Keep them coming. I'm skimming through them. Click on our donate, support the show button. You can donate as little or as much as you want to the show via PayPal. And as I've always said, we understand economic hardship. If you cannot donate anything at this time, that's completely understandable. We value your input. This is an interactive wrestling show, review show for the true wrestling fan that wants wrestling covered in and out, more or less. Refer us to a friend. That's the next best thing to donating. If you like what you hear, like our videos, turn a friend on. youtube.com/CWE Company. Friend us on Facebook and Twitter at both at CWE Company. Our new email address, our secondary email address, cwecompany@gmail.com. And until next time, this is Joshua Zimmerman saying have a happy Easter, and thank you again for your viewership, guys. It's much appreciated. And until, I want to say we'll be posting Tuesday night for Monday Night Raw coverage. Have a great night, guys.